Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining the call with us. I'm sure we will have a few others join us, but it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I think most on the call will be financial advisors from different areas of Canada, and we may have a few pastors join us as well. That's my expectation, and so we look forward to the information that's shared on this call, and I'm very keen and interested in what our guests have to share, and let me introduce our guests first of all. To many of you familiar with Kingdom Advisors, Rob West is no stranger at all. We see him every month in our study groups. He is the president of Kingdom Advisors and has certainly become a good friend of mine as well. And so we're glad, Rob, to have you. But one of the other roles that is not as prominent in Canada that Rob fills is the host of the radio program MoneyWise, primarily aired in the US, although I think there are some areas in Canada that will also pick it up. So Rob, welcome to the call, and I'd like for you to just take a moment and introduce Chad as well.
Very good. Thanks, Lorne. Well, it's a privilege to be with you today and to share about perhaps a lesser known piece of the Kingdom Advisors ministry, our consumer brand MoneyWise, help you develop some context for how that particular piece of our ministry fits with the overall strategy, and make you aware of hopefully some exciting new developments that are happening in MoneyWise that have reach well beyond the U.S. and can be hopefully a great resource to you in Canada, both in terms of a tool for you and your clients, and we'll share what that looks like, but also to build awareness and demand for the Certified Kingdom Advisor designation, which is one of our primary strategic objectives organizationally. Lorne mentioned Chad Clark. Chad is on the call today. Chad is the lead developer of the MoneyWise app. He's a key part of our team at Kingdom Advisors. And Chad, I'll let you say hello and maybe just give a quick thumbnail sketch of your background.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me, and excited to walk you through some of the work that we've been doing. As Rob said, I'm a software developer. Actually started by running a ministry out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. For any of you know where that is, it's very far away from Canada. And so I have a background in financial coaching and doing financial classes as well. So through that, the Lord has led us to developing an app, and excited to bring this and share this with you all today.
Thanks, Chad. Chad has a really unique combination of skill sets, just an incredible ministry heart. His real passion is to see people aligned with God's heart for them, especially in this area of money, and he's really purposed his life around that. He has incredible competency in this area of software development, working with some of the big tech companies in the U.S., but now leading the charge here as the lead developer for MoneyWise, and really helping us think about innovation across Kingdom Advisors. And then also as a leader, really somebody who is leading our development team and delivering some really compelling and exciting new technology on a weekly basis. And so we're excited to share not only some things that are live and available today that he and the team have been working on for about 8 months, but also some things that are still kind of in development. And so you'll see some of the things that we haven't shown anybody yet that we're working on for the future. And so hopefully you'll enjoy some of the exciting things that we have available and some of the things that are coming as well. Lorne, would you like me to dive into just kind of an overview of the MoneyWise ministry?
Yeah, we'll do that. First of all, I would like to say to everybody on the call, as we go through, if you have questions, and I'm sure you're going to have some as Rob and Chad gets into the presentation, the chat box is there, so I would ask, feel free to chat in there. There is a question mark there as well. If you could put your questions in there, that would make it simpler. So use the chat for chat and use the question mark box for questions. That makes it simple and easy. Yeah, that'll be great as we go through. Chad is actually going to be able to walk us through the app. If you haven't already downloaded it, it would be, well, I don't know if you want to do it on the call or not, but definitely download the app and take a look. But Rob, yeah, first of all, tell us a little bit about MoneyWise, the radio program, and if you can as well, to kind of get into the vision of where did the idea of the MoneyWise app even come from?
Yeah, very good. Well, many of you, especially those perhaps in Canada, don't realize that under the Kingdom Advisors umbrella is really two brands. There's, of course, the Kingdom Advisors brand, which is really focused primarily, as you are well aware, on advisors, serving the advisory community with community training, what we call advocacy for the industry of Christian financial advice, and then what we call distinction, which is the banner under which we issue the Certified Kingdom Advisor designation and hold that out as the gold standard for biblically wise financial advice. But we also have a second brand, which is really our consumer-facing brand, which is MoneyWise and MoneyWise Media, which has a long-standing position as a radio ministry, going all the way back to, many of you may be familiar with the name Larry Burkett. Larry passed away in 2003, but really popularized the application of biblical wisdom to modern personal finance through all of his books, his massive radio ministry, and his organization called Christian Financial Concepts. And Larry was also the founder of Kingdom Advisors, which at the time was called the Christian Financial Planning Institute, and was originally under that name, and then ultimately handed off to Ron Blue as the CEO to expand the vision, and it later became Kingdom Advisors. And so Larry has this unique position in that he had influence over both of these brands and what they are today. On the MoneyWise side, what we realized was that we are really about sharing these timeless principles of biblical wisdom that relate to financial decision making. And that's at the core of everything we do at Kingdom Advisors in terms of our training for advisors, the Certified Kingdom Advisor educational program, and really helping advisors become specialists in bringing a biblical worldview to financial decision making, of course, alongside competent financial counsel. And as we think about doing that, we realize that these timeless principles are being dispensed by our advisors to their clients. But we also recognize that there probably was a need for us to take this timeless wisdom direct to the Christian consumer when we were given the opportunity to assume the radio ministry of Larry Burkett and Howard Dayton through a series of events. And so we were graciously asked to become the next stewards of the MoneyWise radio programs back in 2018, and we decided that that was exactly what the Lord had for us, because we wanted to be able to continue to share these principles to a broader audience, Christian consumers, but also there was really a key strategic objective at Kingdom Advisors, and that was to grow demand and awareness for the Certified Kingdom Advisor designation. Because it's one thing to train up and certify advisors with CKA. It's another thing, though, for the Christian consumer to know that the worldview and training of their advisor matters, and that there is a gold standard out there in the form of a designation. And without that awareness, we can have an impact, and Certified Kingdom Advisors can have an impact, but we'd rather have both happening at the same time. Advisors making their clients aware that they've earned CKA and doing their own kind of marketing and awareness, but Kingdom Advisors and through our consumer brand MoneyWise really driving that demand and awareness as well. And so that's really a key strategic priority for us. And really everything we do on MoneyWise is about these two objectives: sharing these life-changing principles and seeing the life change that occurs, but also driving demand and awareness for CKA. And so keep that in mind as you even hear Chad share today, because you'll see how deeply embedded CKA is into every facet of the MoneyWise app. Let's talk about the app. We're still just 3 years old, MoneyWise Media, in terms of KA assuming this ministry. And we've got all that we can do with the radio programs, delivering a quality radio broadcast in 3 forms every day: a 1-hour live edition that happens at 4 o'clock Eastern in about an hour and 50 minutes. I'm looking up to my clock that ticks by the second, and that's a constant reminder that my live radio show comes every day. And then the second form is a 25-minute syndicated program. And then the third form is a 60-second feature called the MoneyWise Minute. And the three programs air on about 1,500 Christian radio stations across the U.S., and we're reaching about 1 million weekly listeners. We also have a podcast, and we had about 1 million downloads of the MoneyWise podcast last year. It's available on just about every podcasting platform, and that, of course, would be very accessible in Canada. As Lauren and I have talked, we think that of the three, probably the MoneyWise Minute is the most relevant across, outside the U.S., just because, as you all would be well aware, the nuances of the financial system and the financial markets and terminology in Canada changes slightly. We go from 401k to the types of retirement accounts that you have there, and instead of the IRS, we talk about the taxing authority, and so there's obviously changes in language and terminology. But the MoneyWise Minute in particular is very principle focused, and because of its short form, we really don't get into a lot of technical components, and we don't answer questions on that particular broadcast. So if there was an opportunity to expand the MoneyWise radio program into Canada, apart from having another voice like Lauren take that over, which we would love to see happen, Lord willing, in the future, we think that today the MoneyWise Minute is easily transferable to Canada. And if any of you on the line today want to explore what it might look like to approach a Christian radio station there in Canada with any one of the three programs, but probably most appropriately the MoneyWise Minute, be sure to let us know.
Yeah, and interestingly,
Yeah.
Rob, I will say on that, the information is transferable, but it takes a little bit of interpretation. Because there are questions that come about retirement, and you get into 401ks in the U.S., which would be equivalent to our RRSP, the Roth IRA, which I believe is equivalent to our TFSA, our tax-free savings account in Canada. So financial advisors, I think, can easily interpret. But the big piece of what you are sharing is the biblical wisdom, which we know that has no issue crossing the border. And we have issues getting you guys across our border or else crossing your border right now. But biblical wisdom is transcended, and it can certainly transfer. So again, Rob, I think that's a good point, is the MoneyWise Minute typically concentrates on the principles, which is very valuable, of course. I'll let you jump in and continue, but I wanted you to confirm the link for us if somebody was interested in downloading the app as we speak, because I think if you just do MoneyWise, there is another app called MoneyWise, correct? So can you clarify and give us the link?
Chad, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, great question. So you're going to want to look for MoneyWise Biblical Finance. So if you're an Android user, there is another app called MoneyWise. I believe it's developed in South Korea, so you may want to not use that one. But make sure that it says Biblical Finance after MoneyWise, and that makes sure it's the right one. It's a blue logo with a white and green MW. That's the logo for it. So if you're looking for it, if you're an Apple user, you shouldn't have an issue finding it. You should just type in MoneyWise. We should be one of the first ones to pop up. On Android, though, just make sure you're downloading the one that says Biblical Finance.
Very good. You can also go to app.moneywise.org, and you'll find the links there for both of those stores, and they'll take you right into the correct app. app.moneywise.org will take you there.
Yeah.
All right, so where does an app fit into this ecosystem? Well, a couple of things. Number one is we recognize that terrestrial radio, and that's what we call traditional radio, is not going anywhere anytime soon, but we do know that listening habits are changing. So somebody may find us in their car and discover the program, and then they may change their listening habit and decide they're going to listen through the web or a podcast or an app as they're on the treadmill or in their commute. People want to listen on demand as opposed to just listening to the radio when they're happening, to be in the midst of their commute. And so as listening habits change and as terrestrial radio changes. We recognize there may come a day where traditional radio is not anywhere near what it is today. You might find that if you rent a new car, you have to work to actually find AM and FM, whereas it used to be kind of front and center. And so we've known for a long time that although we're going to put all kinds of energy into a really quality radio broadcast, and in fact we have a whole revamp of the show coming next year that we're really excited about, we also need to develop an offline audience that can consume our content in different forms, but also on demand. And we recognize that being able to deliver that through a smartphone experience, just given the prevalence of smartphones and tablets, is critical. But if we're going to do that, we might as well take advantage of other opportunities to deliver what we believe our listeners and constituents need. And so what you'll see today from Chad is that at the core of this app is not only access to the MoneyWise radio broadcasts, but it goes well beyond that. In fact, really, the core offering of this app is a digital envelope system, which if you listen to our broadcast and you as advisors and even pastors would know that apart from understanding that God owns it all, you got to live within your means. And the very best way, in fact, I would submit the only way to do that effectively is to live on a spending plan. And we love, going all the way back to Larry Burkett, the envelope system as a way to do that. But we wanted to deliver it in a way that fit with modern technology, taking full advantage of the ability to download transactions automatically, have them automatically categorized. We went with a true envelope system approach, which for us means you don't project your income, you actually tie it to a real-time balance from your funding accounts, and you can have more than one of those, checking and savings, multiple savings accounts. So we really looked at all the different app solutions that were out there on the market, and there are a number of them, YNAB and EveryDollar and Mint, and you may know many of them, but they all had something we felt was missing. And so we said, let's set out to build what we believe is a true envelope system that addresses all the things we want it to have as core functionality. But then let's build on the radio program to develop a community of people who want to think biblically about managing their money. And so you'll see our community section where people can interact and engage with each other, and let's deliver really compelling content from not only Kingdom Advisors and MoneyWise, but other key players in this industry of Christian financial advice, so that the best content that's available in the world in our space can all be aggregated in one place. And let's think about how we can deliver that in a unique form that really is consistent with the way people are engaging with content today, which is very short snippets, very short videos, short content excerpts where you can access it very simply and easily, and then engage and go further. Plus, we also recognize that it's not enough to deliver a great envelope system and a community and some great content. We want to lead people to take a next step, because until they take a next step, they're not going to fully realize the life change that's possible. And so at the core of this app is going to be a next step in two areas. Number one is to engage with a coach, somebody who will walk alongside you to help you put a spending plan or a giving plan or a debt repayment plan in place while teaching you some of these biblical principles at the same time. Or secondly, for those who have more in the way of investable assets and net worth, connecting them with a certified Kingdom Advisor is obviously a key part of this. So, as we set out to develop the app, we said, let's start by building a world-class digital envelope system. And that's what the team's been working on for the last 8 months. And that's out, and it's live, and it's ready to go. We will continue, though, to build on top of that by really enhancing the other aspects of the app in the months ahead. The community aspect, the content aspect, which we call the Discover tab, and then a lot of other exciting things that we have planned for the future. So, Lorne, do you have any questions or anything we need to tackle before Chad dives into a demo?
I'm quite excited about what you shared, Rob, about the community, because that's one of the things we're trying to build in Canada. And I wanted to just share that just to add on to what you were saying. We're building a community of Christian financial professionals in the country, but we want to extend that community, obviously, so that the general public can take advantage of dealing with an advisor who has like values. The advantage in the U.S. is, I think, the MoneyWise program that is, on air, and you're able to share and distribute the app in that sort of way because you're able to talk about it. We don't necessarily have that sort of platform here in Canada, at least for the moment, as you shared. But, I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to have both of you guys on this call, is to let everybody in Canada know, or those that are interested, that there is an opportunity to use this because it's developed not for Americans only, but inclusive in Canada as well. So I'd like for you to talk about that a little bit if you want to respond, Rob. But Chad, I think certainly we can get into the app and share with us how we can grow that community, not just in America, but in Canada as well.
Well, I'll just quickly say, because I don't want to take much more time away from Chad, that I fully agree. And as I said, MoneyWise is really about driving demand for CKA, but also creating this tribe or this community of Christians that really want to think differently about what is God's heart related to how I manage my money. And they need a certified kingdom advisor on that journey, but they also need to be in community with others who are thinking that way. And they need really compelling content and resources to be able to begin to think differently, so that what they're getting from their pastor and what they're getting from their advisor and what they're getting on the radio or in the app or through these little mini courses and content we can deliver and push out to them every day, it's all a consistent message, really driving them toward the same end goal. And although radio is going to be a bit longer in terms of our ability to probably get it into Canada in the same way it is in the U.S., we believe the app is probably the quickest way we can go to market to begin to foster this community, bring more exposure to CKA, and deliver this world-class digital envelope system that the team has built. So I think this is really a great opportunity for Canada, and it's why I'm so excited to share some of the work we've been doing here today. So with that, Chad, why don't you dive into a demo?
All right, let's do it. If your head is spinning from all that information, we're about to make it spin a little bit more. No, I think hopefully everything Rob has been saying, we can now actually put some imagery behind, this vision and everything that we've been doing. So thank you for outlining all of that stuff, Rob. And like he said, what we're going to do today is we're going to show you, where the app currently stands, but there's some features in here that we're going to show you that actually is future oriented. So you're going to get a sneak peek. That's one of the advantages of being on this call. You're going to see not only kind of where it is, you can do that by downloading it, but we're going to show you where we're going as well, and why we're so excited about that. So it looks like everybody can see my screen. Is that right, Lauren? I just want to verify that we're good. Okay.
We are good.
All right, great. So like Rob mentioned, we decided to design an envelope style of money management system. And so we really try to stick true to that system of, you've got an amount of money and you need to distribute that into your envelopes, and then that's what you spend from. So unlike some other budgeting apps where you actually project your income and then you kind of spend off of that, we really tie it to an actual balance. And we're going to show you how we do that here in just a moment. But I encourage you all to download this, check it out for yourself. If you have any questions, we've got a lot of different places that you can contact us for support. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I will just make one other note. We really definitely need to get some more ratings so other people can find it. So we would greatly appreciate it if you download the app to give us a positive rating if you like it. If you don't like it, let me know. We'll work on that, but don't give us a poor rating, please. So let's go ahead and jump into this here. So this is the home screen when you jump in, and that's a good question. Let me take a step back. This is available, we saw that in the chat there. This is available on both Apple and Android. And we also have a web version of this at app.moneywise.org. So app.moneywise.org. I'll actually put that in the comments here so you all can have access to that. So there's three ways that you can access it. So if you're not comfortable using an app on your phone, feel free to use it on your computer via your browser. Same experience. And one of the great things is that your information is transferred across all your devices. So if you and your spouse want to share the app, you guys can be using different devices, even Apple or Android. And as long as you use the same login credentials, you have access to that account. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get jumping in here. And I'm going to answer that question here in just a second on the info. So if we start on the overview screen here, you'll see this MoneyWise Minute right here is the featured content when you first come in, just because it's a short format version of the show that Rob does. And there's a lot of great, advice that comes through this. They use verses in there to help support the stances. And so, when you jump in here, I encourage you to listen to this. It's a little podcast player that pops up, and it'll play in the background if you're at the gym or in your car. And so you can put it in background mode as well, which is really nice. But what we've done is really just try to design a very clean, easy to use application. So I'm not going to go through every little bell and whistle that we have within this application. I just want to kind of highlight some of the key pieces. So you can see it pulls in your transactions. You can manage your accounts either manually or via an account connection. We'll go through some of that in just a moment. But we've got two versions of the app. We have a free version, which is completely free. We don't have any intention to ever charge for it. And that version, you manually input your information. So you manually input your transactions, you manually update your account balances. So it takes a little bit more work to manage it that way. And then we have a pro version, which is $6.99 a month, or if you go online, you can subscribe for $59.99 a year. And the reason we charge for that version is because we manage connected accounts. And we'll talk about the security of that. We'll actually look at some of the Canadian account institutions that we can connect to. But there's a cost that we have to pay in order to connect those accounts and maintain that data. And those accounts are managed by a third party, a company that's owned by Visa. And so they store all of those credentials. They keep them encrypted. We never have any credentials, account numbers, anything that would allow somebody to move money. We don't have any of that information on our servers. All we have is a read-only data feed of your transactions and your account balances. And I'm going to look at this question here for just a sec. But so that's one of the key difference between the free and the pro is really some automation and the connected accounts versus a more manual process with the free version. What's the difference between using?
Chad, why don't you just keep moving, and then
Okay.
Lorne can filter
The
these.
questions? Great. I'll hide those and then keep moving along. All right. So let's jump in here and just look at the envelope system real quick. So what you can do within the app is you can create envelopes within different envelope groups, and you can also create new envelope groups. So when you first come into the app, we give you a handful of envelope groups and envelopes that we believe might be helpful for you to get started with, but you can always go in and add as many new envelopes as you'd like. And so it just gives the user a lot of flexibility in how they use this for their specific situation. And then what you do is once you have your envelopes, you actually fund your envelopes with the amount of money that you have available in your accounts. So if you look up here, we've got $895 available for funding. And you can see that we already have some funding allocated to some different envelopes. So we've got $500 for church, $1,000 for mortgage. And one of the things that we've done that Rob was talking about before that we did a lot of research on is some of these other apps didn't do a great job of reconciling your distribution of this money to your actual account balances. And so if you click on that little icon there on the previous screen, it'll actually show you a nice reconciliation of how we walk from your actual account balance all the way down to your available for funding. So we can see the distribution across our higher level envelope groupings. And like Rob mentioned, you can actually have multiple accounts funding your envelopes. So you may have a checking, a savings, or a retirement account that could be funding these envelopes, and you can reconcile it all back to the actual balances, which is really critical. Being accurate is an essential piece of the equation. And so just real simple, clean design. When we go down here, we can click into an envelope, and we can see the activity. So we can see, some of the restaurants that we've gone to. We can see when we've funded the envelope, meaning we've taken money out of that checking or savings account and actually distributed it into the envelope so that it's available for us to spend. And just real clean interface. It's hopefully very enjoyable for people to use to manage their money. In addition to the envelope system, we've also designed a planning functionality. And the plan is very closely resembles the envelope system with a very distinct difference. And that is that the plan is future looking, right? It's not based on your actual account balances, but it allows you to look across the entire month and plan out how much money is going to be coming in and how am I going to distribute that money throughout the month. And so this is a really great way for people to put together their spending plan before they get paid and to really think through how they're going to use their money throughout the month. And this is really important if you ever have clients or run across people that have cash flow issues. If you click on the schedule feature, it'll actually show you the timing of when your income comes in and also when you plan to use that money in your different envelopes. And we found this is an incredibly helpful tool for people that might have cash flow issues. A lot of people, their bills are unevenly distributed throughout the month, and maybe coming out of one paycheck predominantly, when they simply just need to move the timing of those bills, and their cash flow issues are pretty much resolved. So this is a really great tool for people to really just plan out their spending throughout the month, see if they're encountering any cash flow issues, and really be intentional. I think that's the key word. The plan is all about being intentional with how you're going to use your money throughout the month. And so the plan and the envelopes are closely correlated. We actually have some functionality where, if we scroll down here, we can see there's two columns here. And we can see, what did we have planned for the month and how much have we actually funded. So you can see here, we haven't planned anything for groceries. We haven't funded anything for groceries, but you can actually keep track of how closely you're sticking to your plan by just kind of looking at this reconciliation between the two. So there's a lot more that goes into this. We got some great help docs available. If you go to the website, it's app.moneywise.org/guide. And it really goes into the details of how to use the app. And I know I'm kind of going over it at a very high level, but there's a lot of great resources there if you have further questions on how some of this stuff works. The final piece I want to touch on here on this is the accounts piece. So we've got a really cool net balance view here, which I think is really helpful for a lot of people to just understand their overall position. Sometimes we look at our checking accounts or savings accounts, but we don't always see how that looks in relation to our credit cards. So when you start connecting your accounts, you get this really great real-time balance sheet that really just helps you understand where you are and where your opportunities are. And so we feel like this is really great if you're working with clients and you feel like they need to have a better grasp of their overall balance sheet. I know a lot of your planning tools probably do that really well. This could be a potentially great resource for them to use and understand that and apply some of the changes that you're recommending in their lives. So at a very high level, that's the budgeting and planning capabilities of the app. And I'll stop here and ask if there's any questions or if anybody'd like me to dive in a little bit deeper.
Let me just cover a couple of quick things, and then Lorne, if you want to tackle any of these questions, we can do that. Number one is it's really designed, which goes to this question about what's the difference between using Excel to record the expenses from Mary, and thanks for that question, Mary. I think the key is not only is this in the palm of your hand, but it's designed really for efficiency and to be automated. So when the transactions are downloaded, if you're a pro user, automatically from all your institutions, your credit cards, or from your bank, if you use a debit card, the system will learn how you allocate certain transactions to which envelope, and will automatically then assign those transactions to that envelope as it learns. You have the ability to override that if you want. So for instance, you could go in and say, for Amazon, don't auto-assign it, because it might go in any one of 5 different categories. But if it's Panera Bread or Starbucks, it automatically goes to restaurants or coffee shops because it's the same every time. So that's the kind of automation that's there. The other thing that is automated for pro users is the ability to fund the envelopes. So Chad, I don't know if you want to show just where somebody would go if you want to say, transfer for any one of these categories. So for groceries, you want to transfer $500 every month on a certain day, you would auto fund, and the money would just automatically drop in that envelope, in this case $100 every week starting October the 6th. that's just automatically going to be there. He wants to add the funds now. So $100 was just moved, and $400 will be funded over the month. And every 7 days after October 6th, it'll just automatically happen. So once you get your budget set up, you've got all your auto funding set, you've got all of your auto categorization of your transactions. This thing is just churning in the background, and if you're married, you or your spouse always have a real-time look at not only what are our balances, but what are our fund balances in our envelopes. And I think that really is a significant game changer.
Just a quick comment, Chad, on the envelopes. If you could clarify how to use them. I notice Live, Give, Grow is in there. So categorizing with anybody that's been with Kingdom Advisors for any length of time would certainly recognize those uses of money and those categories, which is pretty neat for advisors, I think, to share with their clients.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in here, so I encourage you to dive in and again look at our guide, which covers a lot of this. But if you're on your envelopes tab and you go to options, you actually have the opportunity to group by either the category or by Live, Give, Grow. And so if I pop back over here, you'll see now all of my Live are grouped together. My Give, my O, it doesn't look like I have any Grow set up for this specific user. And so this just allows you to just get a slightly different look at the data. So that's a great.
That user needs an advisor. That's what the problem is.
I think so. I think I know where to find one too. So we'll show you that in just a second. But yes, that's a great point. I mean, there's just a lot of things you can do. You can archive envelopes. For instance, I had a friend who I attended their wedding, and there was a lot of expenses that come with the wedding. But once that wedding had passed, I archive that envelope so that it's not sitting there just kind of accumulating. It's off to the side, and I can always pull it back in if I ever need to. So there's just a lot of great functionality and automation, like Rob was saying. So we're pretty excited about it.
So can you talk to us about the security, who owns the information that's downloaded here, and as well, basically all the major banks in Canada that are covered under this?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and this is a great segue to kind of this next segment here. So if you're manually inputting your transactions, that information is stored on our servers. It's encrypted at the bank level security. So we use the same level of encryption that the banks use to secure your data and your connections. And we actually use Amazon Web Services, if any of you are familiar with that, which is really the leader in that. So we don't manage our own servers. We really use the best-in-class server management system so that we don't have any of these data breaches that you sometimes see from big organizations hosting their own servers. So it's always encrypted. It's encrypted at rest, and it's anonymized as well. So all of that information is there on our servers. The other thing, for those of you that are familiar with GDPR, you can also go in, and if you delete the app or you reset the app, it'll actually clear all of your data. So it'll be as if nothing had ever existed on our systems and you never existed. So if you ever really feel concerned about the data, we do make it very easy for you to just completely wipe that away. And again, it'll be as if you never existed on our systems. As far as the account connectivity goes, like I said before, we use a third party called Plaid. That's their name. They're a Visa-owned company, and they manage all of the account connections for us. So they are our account aggregator. And those of you that are advisors and use account aggregation tools, you guys are familiar with kind of that process. The credentials are stored and utilized on the account aggregation side. And what Visa and Plaid have been doing, which is really great, is they've been upgrading their security standards so that they don't even store any login credentials on their servers, but they actually get a tokenized security set up with these institutions. And so there's a lot of institutions across the US and Canada that have migrated over to that higher level of security. So security is built in to what we do, into what Plaid does, and it's just getting better and better. And so, we continue to make that a very high priority for us, if not the top priority, to keep that data secure. So let's go ahead and just take a look here. And Lorne, if you wouldn't mind, what's an institution in Canada that is pretty common?
Could be Scotiabank, RBC.
I think RBC.
CIBC.
RBC Royal Bank. So is that the one?
Yeah, there is, because I'm actually with RBC, there is a U.S. version of that, and I think RBC Royal Bank is Canadian.
Is the Canadian version.
Yeah.
So what you could do is you simply go in and you can search for your institution, and when you click on it, right, it'll ask you to log in. It'll do some multi-factor authentication, so it may send you a text message or ask you a security question to ensure that it actually is you making the connection. And once you make this connection, basically, like Rob was saying, the data is just going to be coming in on a regular basis. So the system usually updates about 4 times a day. So if you go to the store and then you jump right into the app, it may or may not be there right away, but it will be there within at least a couple hours at most, depending on the institution. But once you get these set up, really the transactions just start to flow through automatically. Your balances update automatically, and it just helps you really stay organized. And the great thing is you can see all of your accounts in one place, which I think is a real benefit of the system. I know Plaid they've got a number of Canadian institutions, and every week I get updates about new institutions that they're bringing online in Canada. So if you don't see yours in there, feel free to let me know, and we'd be happy to submit that to them to say, hey, we've got users that want this institution connected. Plaid is actually very responsive to that, and they do a great job of getting those up and online, usually within a month or 2. So if you don't see yours, don't hesitate, just let me know. We'd be happy to work with Plaid to get that up and running for you.
So, Chad, is there a way through the app to actually make a connection if a Canadian is not finding their bank there?
They don't actually. You could actually go to. You could go back here and do contact support.
Okay.
That's probably the best place to do that, and then you can just let us know what the bank name is, and we'll ask any other information we need. So if you just contact support, we'll take care of it from there.
Colin asked a question about linking more than one device. You may have already spoken a bit to this, but it's an example of husband and wife looking at the same numbers and not just individually.
Yeah, absolutely. So as long as you're using the same login credentials in the app, you can use it on as many devices as you want. So you can use the browser, Android, Apple device, and we've got a lot of couples. My wife and I, we do that. We just log into the same account, and we're on the same page. Well, we try to be on the same page at least. So we're still working on that one. Hopefully did that answer that question, hopefully?
Yeah, and anybody that has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. We did set aside an hour, keeping in mind Rob has radio that he has to go to and prepare for, so that's why we did to call it 2 rather than 3.
Well, I'll just touch on the last couple pieces here, and then we'll definitely open up for more questions. But that's the budgeting piece, the connected piece. I do want to show the community piece that Rob was talking about here as well. So we built in this community piece because, like Rob was mentioning, we don't want this to just be another budgeting app or just something that you can go and listen to the show or get great resources. We really want to build a community. We want people to have conversations around how are we to be good stewards. And not only that, but for people to know that there are other people striving to be good stewards. There's such a powerful dynamic when you know other people are on that same journey with you. And so you can see we've got a number of questions and discussions that are taking place within the community. I love this one. We had a user who was listening to Rob on the show. They had a guest that was talking about faith-based investing. And so we've had some great conversation around this idea of faith-based investing, and they're asking questions such as, well, if I'm not willing to invest in a company, should I be purchasing that company's product? Should I be supporting them in any way? And so one of the great things that we have, and we'll be rolling this out over the next couple months, is it's in beta testing right now, so we only have a couple of people doing it. But we've got these CKA, so what you'll be able to do is actually plug in your CKA member ID, and if it's valid, we'll actually put your CKA image and a CKA designation in the community. So when you answer a question or you participate in the community, you can even pose a question in the community. it'll show up as it coming from a CKA. So this helps build that brand awareness. And like Rob said, we're trying to find ways to really bring that awareness of the CKA. And we feel like this community piece is critical because you have a very important voice when it comes to these questions. And Brian Cochran here has chimed in on this really great conversation around faith-based investing and gave that person a really great different perspective than they had previously. So excited about this community piece. One last thing I want to mention on this is as the community continues to grow, we're actually going to start to segment the community into different sections. And Lorne, as you were mentioning kind of the differences between the US and Canada, I think it would make sense to actually build a community specifically for Canada that people could subscribe to. So if somebody has something that's a question specific to Canadian institutions and investments and retirement, they can post that within that Canadian section of the community, and then those CKAs that have that perspective can go in and actually comment there. So I think that's something we'd be more than happy to set up and design. We just want you guys to use it. So that's the caveat.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great way for certified Kingdom advisors in Canada to establish that community and even have clients or non-clients just ask questions. Anybody who's struggling even in the area of finances, ask a question about anything. There were some good ones there about paying down your mortgage or not with interest rates as they are. So opportunity. Rob, you were going to jump in, I thought, there.
Yeah, I was just going to say the other thing that's great about that CKA logo inside the community is once that's fully built out, you'll be able to click on that person's name, the CKA, and their CKA profile will pop up. So they'd be able to contact you, learn more about who you are, if they liked the kind of answers you were providing. So we always want to create connections back to the CKAs where possible.
Yeah, and we'll transition that actually. So if you go to the More tab, we actually have a Certified Kingdom Advisor search built in, and this will actually show you what it'll look like when you participate in the community and then somebody clicks on your profile. So somebody can go and search for their certified Kingdom Advisor, and if they click on somebody's profile, they can actually contact them via the phone, their email, go to their LinkedIn account, or they can actually contact them directly through the app as well. So just a really great functionality. So this profile page would be what pulls up in the community if the user clicks on that CKA's profile, so that they can connect with them and ask them further questions or find out more about their services.
That's part of what excited me about the app, to be honest, is the ability to so easy find an advisor that for the Christian community to find an advisor who has like values, particularly around their faith in Canada. So that's exciting. There was a question a little ways back, Ed, and we'll let you get back to what you were about the other app. Just lost it just for a second.
$every, I think.
The $every app. How are we different? How is this app different than the $every app?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, one of the key differences is obviously we stick very strictly to the envelope style of budgeting, whereas $every you plan out kind of your monthly income and then you spend according to it. So the methodology is slightly different. $every does have some functionalities to kind of carry over balances, but you'll notice there is a difference in the methodology between us and $every, and so depending on your preferences, you may like one or the other. But I think the real key difference is that we're really trying to integrate this biblical wisdom within the app. So the budgeting features are great. There's a lot of apps out there that do it and do it really well. But I think the real key differentiator is that we've got all these resources, we've got this content, and we're really building an ecosystem around biblical finance. And even though $every is technically Dave Ramsey's tool, you're not going to see something with that type of integration out there. And so, yes, we feel like we've got a really great competitive, money management tool to $every. But when you start to add in all of these other capabilities, we feel like it really stands out above the rest.
Yeah, I think this, even searching for a CKA and the ability to actually get advice from a qualified advisor who has studied biblical principles, that's pretty significant and pretty unique, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the community, just that discussion board and everything. So we'll talk about the last little piece here, which actually kind of feeds into that discussion. So it's a nice segue again. This is a preview of what's to come. So if you have the app right now and you go to Discover, you're going to see all of the MoneyWise episodes, and I encourage you to listen to them. Laugh at some of Rob's really bad jokes and Steve Moore making fun of him. And so what we're intending to do with this Discover tab at the start of the year is actually be an aggregator of some of the best content from a biblical financial perspective that's out there. And so we've started to partner with organizations such as National Christian Foundation, another organization called Christian Stewardship Network, which really promotes stewardship pastors within churches. There's just a number of organizations. Some of you may know Art Rayner. He's got a great podcast that we're going to be integrating within here. And so the vision of this Discover tab is that you're not just discovering the MoneyWise content, but just anyone that has a great biblical perspective on how to manage money. We want that content in here and accessible to people. And what they can do is actually learn more about these organizations. So if we look at National Christian Foundation, which sets up donor-advised funds for charitable giving, this is what an example would look like of their channel. And so the user could come in here, they'd be able to follow this organization, so any updates that the organization makes, any content updates, the user would be notified. And they'd be able to listen to any type of podcasts, read articles, and in this case, they'd actually be able to open up a donor-advised fund directly through the app. And so there's a number of content partners that we've started to engage with. Another one is Compass Financial, for those of you that are familiar with Compass Financial, Howard Dayton's ministry that does small group studies. And so we're working with them and several others to bring this resource to people so that it's, again, not just the MoneyWise content, but really the best of the best when it comes to this biblical financial perspective. So we hope that this will be really helpful for people to just navigate and find the resources they need. We've got some topics down here. So depending on where that person is, maybe they're trying to get out of debt, they'd be able to find topics on that. Maybe they want to learn to give more, or how to save, or how to invest. And so we really want it to just be a resource that helps address the need that the person is at that point in time and just give them that really great resource. So with that, that's really the app and kind of where we're at as of today. So just to recap, it's a budgeting app. It uses the envelope system, but we've also built in this community so people can have discussions and build relationships through this community. And then, over time, we're going to be integrating some really great content, not only from MoneyWise, but from other organizations as well, to really give people some great tools to apply these biblical principles. So we're excited about it and hope that you guys will check it out, give us some feedback, and like I said, if you enjoy it, we'd love a positive rating if you wouldn't mind.
Chad, will you comment on some of the CKA features we're building in, like the dashboard and client?
Absolutely, yes. I actually have a question for those of you that are CKAs. So one of the things that we're working towards right now is actually a way for CKAs to give access to this app to their clients or to people within their church or just somebody that they know. Maybe you have a child or a friend or a family member that really needs help getting their financial life in order, and this could be such a great tool and a part of your ministry to be able to do that. And so what we're looking to do is actually allow for people to buy block subscriptions of the pro version of this app and be able to gift those either to clients or family members or friends as a way to just bless them and help them on this journey. We hear a lot of times that advisors get phone calls from people that really need to just get on a spending plan. They don't need investment help. And we see that this could be a great opportunity for someone to say, hey, I can't, I'm not able to help you with that spending plan, but I do want to bless you with this resource for the next 3 months to kind of help you get started. So there's a lot of great use cases there. And for those of you that would want to potentially use it as part of your practice, the vision is that we would actually allow you to pull reports for those users if they grant access, of course, And so if you have a client who uses the MoneyWise app and they have some questions about some of their spending behavior or just the categorization of stuff, you'd be able to pull some of those reports and actually help walk through your clients with a dashboard that would be really easy to do that. So yeah, a lot of great stuff that we're envisioning for the CKA community to just allow you to put this into people's hands and be a blessing to them. I did have a question. I don't know if this would be appropriate, Rob, about the model that we have in mind for that dashboard.
Go for it.
Okay. So one of the things that we're trying to figure out is the appropriate way to structure the gifting of these things. And one of the models we have in mind is that you would buy a block of subscriptions, let's say 10 subscriptions or 20 subscriptions, that you would then gift, to anybody that really you would want to. You'd have your own code that you could use to gift to people. Is that block type subscription idea something that seems appealing to those of you that are advisors, or is something more like a pay-as-you-go a more desirable kind of model? We want to really model this around what would be most beneficial for you as advisors.
And I have a question around that. Would that be considered a charitable donation, a business expense for somebody to actually do that? If they were to buy it for their clients, how would that work?
I believe it would be considered a business expense because the individual's receiving a benefit for that purchase. But I think that's something we definitely need to look into more for sure, to see if we can classify it in different ways. I don't know, Rob, if you have any insight on that.
Well, I think you're right. So just clarify the two different approaches that you're considering, and then we'll ask them to put their thoughts into chat.
Yeah, so there's really two approaches. One would be, would you be willing to buy a block of subscriptions, let's say 10 subscriptions or 20 subscriptions that you can then gift out, and you just build a flat rate each month up to that level? Or would you prefer to just be billed as you go? So, if you run across somebody, you can add them into your system, and then you cover the expense for that user. Just not really sure. Different practices have different models, so just trying to figure out what the best idea would be.
We'll watch the chat. Be sure to put those in there before you leave today, and we'll go back through all the comments. If you want to talk more about it, if you have real interest in extending this to clients, we are going to speak into this process, and if you're interested in helping us think through that, we would be definitely interested in talking to you before we roll this out. Any final questions before we wrap up? Lorne, anything from your end?
There was one on the community part being made available separately, perhaps online, so others who are using the app can view answer also. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, Chad, you want to tackle that?
If the community aspect would be available offline, if you don't have an account?
On the web, instead
yeah,
of just through the app.
On the web, yeah.
On the web, yes. We do actually have the community on the web. You do have to be a user in order to see and to participate in the conversation.
Okay.
Yep, but it is available on the web.
There was also a question about importing transactions from a spreadsheet. Is that possible?
We don't currently have the functionality to import from a spreadsheet. We don't currently have that on our roadmap at the moment, but if we get enough users requesting that or a good use case for it, we'd be happy to explore it. So if that's something that you really would like to have, I'd be happy to talk with you about some potential solutions for your situation.
Talk about what actually pulls down, Chad. Does it go back to the first day of the month when you sign up, or what data comes in when you first connect your accounts?
Yeah, so right now it just pulls back from the first of the month that you sign up in. That way you get a clean slate. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll actually be allowing users to dictate how far back they want transactions to pull. We can actually pull back to up to 24 months in history. You don't really want 24 months of history because that's going to take a long time to categorize all those transactions. So we do recommend that people, when they come into it, that they start fresh. And if you're using another budgeting system or an Excel spreadsheet, that you just use that to kind of transfer over and get started fresh within the MoneyWise app, rather than just try to transfer everything from your previous process over. Just kind of use it as a starting point for the new app.
So I think that's the key point there is we're trying to give the user control, be able to dictate how far back the data that is pulling in, but we want it to be in an automated fashion. So you connect your accounts, and then you say, go ahead and pull in the data during this time period in terms of a look back, and then it's all there, and you can begin categorizing as soon as that data is there. So that eliminates the need potentially for the import function. But again, if there's a use case for it, one of the great things about having a team like Chad and his developers is as this feedback is coming in, we're able to make changes and add features, in some cases on the fly, or at the very least add it to our roadmap if it makes sense. So be sure to give us your feedback along the way.
Yeah, love your feedback. And like Rob said, we're looking for potentially creating some focus groups with advisors to learn how we can better integrate this within your practice. So if you're interested in participating in some of those conversations and having a say in how that works, we'd love to have you. So feel free to reach out to Lorne probably, and he'll make sure that he gets you connected to us.
One other quick thing is we're building in the functionality so that once your clients' accounts are connected to your dashboard, not only with their authorization can you pull reports on their data, but also the CKA search functionality goes away at that point, and it's replaced by your profile page. But we don't want to encourage one of your clients to go out and search for another CKA. And so as soon as we know they're attached to you, that disappears, and the only thing that's there is your profile page in the app. And we think that's a pretty significant.
Great clarification. Yep.
Rob, there was a question, and I'll get a comparison between the U.S. and Canada. Brian asked a question, if a CFP is only licensed in one province, like BC, for example, should they be giving advice beyond their territory? Because we are provincially regulated and licensed here. So I don't know if you're licensed by state, which you should not. You should basically only be giving advice in the province that you're licensed in.
Yeah, and obviously I wouldn't want to speak to that related to Canada. What I would just say is typically, for instance, somebody here is licensed by state, depending on how they're registered, but they probably wouldn't be giving specific investment recommendations through the app.
Right.
This pretty general recommendations that are often principle-based or more personal finance type conversations. They wouldn't be saying buy or sell this or giving asset allocation recommendations. So I think from that standpoint, it's because it's fairly generic, it should be fine. But again, we'd have to look into that, and you would have to feel like you have confidence that you have the ability to weigh in and provide counsel in these communities just based on the rules and regs of your particular area.
Yeah, and if we do see specific investment advice, because that's not the purpose of this, that there is a very easy way to flag comments, and we'll remove those immediately and check them for violations. So we are monitoring the community regularly for people that are giving investment advice or doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, or advice that's not biblical as well. So yeah, we do trust that you'll follow your own compliance when it comes to using the community, but we will also take down any posts that may be in violation of any laws or just really don't agree with some of the biblical principles that we're trying to promote.
That's excellent. Thanks very much for the clarification. Really appreciate it. One thought on the whole budgeting thing. For many people, budgeting is not a great word. It's not a word they're very excited about. And some people feel they're wealthy enough that they don't necessarily need a budget. And I think this app is applicable not just to people who are struggling financially and need the envelope system to make things work well, but I think also for people who are doing well financially and they just desire to be a better steward. And so I think that's a piece where it can fit. So it fits with all categories of clients, I think, which is it's very exciting.
Absolutely.
So, great work on the app. I don't know, Chad, or I'll give Chad you the opportunity if you have a closing comment. There is one comment there that cash flow planning and budgeting is the foundation of wealth planning. However, I find most of my clients are reluctant to work on it. I think other than the worksheet, we need more guidance on how to educate clients in this matter. And I think really what I just said is a direct response to that, because it doesn't matter where a client may be on their journey. I think it's still important that they know where their money is going, which is really what this app is doing for them. So, Chad, any closing comment? Then, Rob, I'll get you to close as well.
Nope, I think you summed it up really well, and I thank you guys for the time. And again, if you have questions, please just reach out to the support, and we'd be happy to help get you taken care of.
Yeah, and I would just say I wholeheartedly agree. I think what we all know, though, on this call today is that these folks we're talking about, your clients and the people we come into contact with, will never be as effective in managing God's money apart from having a spending plan. It's just not possible, because without that intentionality and really visibility as to how your money's being allocated, you're never going to be as intentional on how it's used. And so we really need to do a great job in educating clients about this. We've tried to make it as simple and easy and automated as possible through the app to give you a really compelling tool. But I think there's something to be said too about this community that we're trying to build, because as we spur each other on, as there's questions and answers shared, as they're listening to the radio show and jumping in the community, and all of a sudden they hear, some of the content, the videos and the podcasts and the articles, we want to keep this in front of them on a daily basis. One of the big trends right now in these apps is something called streaks, and it's this idea of how many consecutive days have you logged into the app. And the apps that are the most effective have significant streaks, in the sense that there's enough reason for this person to come back on a daily basis to stay engaged, that they're going to really be invested in it. And that's what we want to build here through all these different pieces. We want to make sure people are really engaged with our content, with the envelope system, with the community. And when that happens, then all these pieces work together and it shifts their thinking. And hopefully at some point they'll be bought into this idea that a spending plan is really a critical piece of this. So it's going to take all of us working together, the app, their advisor, that's you, the radio, the church, all of it, to make this work the way that it can. But we think this is a critical piece.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob and Chad, for sharing this today. This has been an excellent resource. I trust advisors will take advantage of it. When it comes to community, I do want to say this. I want to invite you all to our one-day event that is taking place on November the 3rd. It's virtual, so we don't have to actually travel to be to it, to attend. And I would encourage you, we want to see the highest number of attenders ever attend this event. So November the 3rd, there's our speakers lined up. By the way, an all-Canadian lineup. For the first time, I think, ever. I did not realize that Lloyd and Linda Reeb were Canadian, but they are. So that even makes me more excited. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week. And thanks, Rob and Chad.
Thank you.